Hi, everybody. Welcome to another Sunday talk within the Nine-Sided Circle. I got a little confused last because we had our two talk Sunday last week. But yes, this is our usual time. It's 6:30 p.m. Pacific time on Sundays. For those of you who are here live, thank you so much for joining us. And for those of you watching on the replay, we are very happy to have you with us as well. I'm one of your two hosts, Nor Kyle.
And I am her faithful sidekick, Ishaq Ali.
Yeah, we're working towards that. But in the meantime, here we are together to hopefully amuse and educate you. Yeah, so YouTube spiel, I guess. We do that whole thing just like any other YouTuber where we benefit from encouraging you to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and perhaps get regular notifications about when we do post new stuff. And post a comment on this video if something struck you as interesting, or if you have a question you just must ask, or if you have a thought you'd like to share, and perhaps we or other members of our community will, enter into conversation, dialogue with you. That's something we always look forward to seeing. And you can connect with us on Facebook typically or via email. I am still open to one-on-ones, so please do not feel discouraged about that. I'm just, we'd like to figure out fit. Are we a good fit for one another? And the clients that tend to be really good fit with us are folks who feel that that's a mutually positive experience. So we look forward to exploring that with you.
Yeah. Do
And
you
you
have
can,
any slots left?
I have a few introductory sessions coming up, and I still welcome more people to sign up with me because, we got to have those curiosity sessions, like I said, to see if we're a great fit for each other to
Yeah.
go forward into regular sessions on a regular
Yeah.
basis.
And I have one possible session open now. So
Yeah. So that
and get a
is,
hold of either of us.
yes, typically via email, which you'll find below, or like I said, via Facebook as well. And like I said, that is one of the ways that we support ourselves. But primarily, we find that what we do is mostly we enjoy doing it for free, and we appreciate when people um, let us know that they appreciate what we do through donations. So if that speaks to you, as Mushtaq likes to say, any coins you find in your couch cushions, whatever you might have to spare that isn't going to take away from what you need for your well-being, of course, from whatever is left over, feel free to share with us. Anything else you want to add, Mushtaq?
Um, no, that
Yeah.
covers it. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you find our stuff cool, share it with people you also might
Yeah. Or if you absolutely hate it, share it with people you don't like.
drive them
Yeah.
crazy with our
Yeah.
nonsense. Plenty of it to go round after all. All right, so we are talking about something that's pretty cool. I feel like we are always tinkering with many of our ideas. Mushtaq is definitely always tinkering with ideas. So we are sort of revisiting a topic, but from a new point of view. And this is going to be about the science of essences tonight and how those relate to the building of the egoic machine that we are all in our, living with, all of us, each and every one of us. How does that come to be? Well, we're going to talk about that.
Yeah. This is something that undoubtedly came from um, some form of Kashmiri Shivaism a very long time ago, probably even longer ago than that. and is part of the Hindu tradition. And like I said, at some point in Kashmir, some rascal Sufis discovered this teaching, grabbed it, filed off the serial numbers, gave it a new paint job, and began using it.
Rascally Sufis.
Rascally Sufis. And I've talked about this from the original point of view, or what we have left of the original point of view, because in English, I only know of one document that touches on it, and it does it in a really odd sort of way that is not related to the original teachings as I understood them. So this is definitely going to be somewhat heterodox. And like I said, these teachings have dispersed from their origin point. And since they are science rather than religion, any group can use them, if that makes sense.
So, I mean, do you think it would be worthwhile to share those videos in the end
Yeah,
thing?
I'll dig that video up and put the link to it.
Yeah, I mean, we've done at least one. So people may find it interesting to see how we changed since then or how we might explain it differently now. But don't worry about that right now.
Yeah.
Let's just be in the moment and talk about things from.
We'll put that up. That's the one where Rajan made fun of me for my terrible Sanskrit. I
We
can
can't, we're
speak
not
many
perfect.
languages, all of them badly.
Yeah, well,
What you're going to do?
good. Yeah.
With a New Mexico accent.
Yeah. Well, let's give it a shot tonight, shall we?
Yeah. Well, tonight it's mostly going to be just be in English.
Mm.
That's what we're going to be working with. I've got the English equivalents of the states, but what we need to do first is to talk about what we mean when we say essence. The Sanskrit word is rasa, which is, it's an interesting word, and it's usually translated as like a flavor. And it's a word that's frequently used in Ayurvedic medicine. You hear about rasayana, which is very, very potent medicines that are made from the most powerful sattvic herbs combined in certain ways that have amazing effects on people. In Arabic, the word is jawahir, which also means essence. It's different than when we say that or zat. That's a different kind of essence.
Yeah, we've used that term when we talk about the divine essence, for
Yeah,
example.
this is different than that. And we have Osama here, so I am going to type up
Putting
Arabic.
you to work and we're not even paying you.
Yeah. So this is what it's called in Arabic. I'm going to put this in the chat. And Osama, can you please pronounce that properly?
علم الجواهر.
Thank you.
The science of, I guess, essences, the same, the way that you're translated, which is also interesting that jawahir also means jewels.
Yes.
Spicy.
Yeah, we know that from al-jawahir, which is a reference, of course, to the Jewel of the Nile. Hey, the best Sufi movie ever made.
We're due for a rewatch. It's
Yeah.
true.
So, yeah, it has that quality of an essence, a gem-like quality, something that is immutable, like a diamond is not affected by most things, except for maybe a big hammer. But in this, okay, Mr. Gurdjieff said it pretty clearly some time ago. I'm pretty sure it was him who said this, that there are three things that keep you from realizing the fragmented nature of your own consciousness. The fact that you are not one eye, but you are many eyes, each of which is vying for its place in the sun. And the first is that they all have the same name. Everything, all of Noor's personalities are named Noor. Yeah,
We're all stuck with each other. Ugh.
that's right. The second is that we only have one body. And so all personality fragments have the same physical sensations. So it always feels like my body, no matter which I am talking about. And the third, and this is where this comes in, is that everybody has a small group of deep habits that they say doesn't matter how many times you incarnate or anything like that, you always have these habits. And this addresses those, of which we recognize 9, coincidentally enough. And various groups have worked with this in various ways for the last few thousand years. Recently, in the last 40 years or so, maybe, a scientist, every time I want his name, it slips away. Anyway, they're
I forget too, so I will Google it real quick.
yeah. We're sitting here. I'm old. The neurons file a lot slower than they used to. What can I say?
I have that exact same problem frequently.
Ekman.
Paul Ekman, yes.
Yeah, there you go. Just in time.
Just in time. So Dr. Paul Ekman, who I don't know if he's still teaching there, but used to teach at University of California at San Francisco Medical Center, developed over years facial recognition. Not like I recognize that picture as Noor, but he discovered that everyone everywhere has certain expressions that are identical. If you feel joy in Barcelona, Spain, Papua New Guinea, Beijing, China, the facial expression will always be the same. Same with sadness, same with anger, same with disgust. These are so hardwired in to the human being that they become universal. And so far, I know of no exception to this. I mean, maybe there's one out there, but given normal human brain, no organic injury, you get a certain number of expressions that are identical. Ekman identified 7 or 8. been a long time since I studied him. But we identify 9. Most of them are very similar to what he identified. We use different words, and we have the hidden 9th, which will make sense why he didn't identify it. And in order to understand these, I have created for you from me
Yeah, I'm seeing 6, but in any event, it is
yeah, it's
different.
somewhere in there. And I'm
Yeah.
sure with him, it changes from time to time. So I'm going to pull up the share screen and share a screen. And here we are. These 9 states are laid out on an Enneagram in the position that would be most appropriate to the point. None of these essences are negative or positive. They just are.
So I'm just going to read through them real quick.
Yeah.
Going clockwise for people who don't have a
Starting
visual.
with courage.
Okay. So we have an Enneagram in front of us, and going clockwise around the Enneagram, at point 1, we have courage. At point 2, love. At point 3, joy. Point 4, sadness. Point 5, disgust. Point 6, fear. Point 7, wonder. Point 8, anger. And finally, at the top, point 9 or point 0, tranquility.
Yeah. Now, if anybody's interested, I can give you the Sanskrit and the Arabic words in the forum. Not here, not in the comments, but in the forum, because this is for people who actually take the time to work with us. So think about the expression, the facial expression of someone who is exhibiting courage. Think of several different expressions from different people. You all know what that looks like, right? Anybody not able to think of an expression of courage on several different faces? Would you recognize it if you saw it on a person? Yes, no, maybe?
What if you feel it more than you see it, recognition wise?
Yeah. Well, you will feel it inside yourself, but you'll see it on the face of another person. You don't feel it on the face of another person unless you're blind and you're doing this. Jonathan, you're thinking, I can tell.
Yeah, I've had experience of doing scary things that I would not have had the courage to do, but I've done it with someone who has had the courage. And I know that I would have been taking glances at their face and be like, okay, I feel good. I can do this. I'm with this person and I know they've got the courage. This is not phasing them. So I'm cool with it.
Yeah. When we look at the second point of the Enneagram here, let me pull it back up for everybody. Love. When we talk about love here, this is not like the great transcendental love of Rumi or anything like that. This is the love of the embodied love that includes sexual attraction, but not just lust, but actual being drawn to the other. It doesn't have to be sexual, but this is the interconnectedness of one person to another.
So like attachment, attraction.
Attraction, not attachment.
Okay.
And all of you know what this looks like too. You've all seen the face of somebody who is drawn to you or drawn to somebody. The third point, it's called joy. And joy is different than love. Joy is different than happiness. Joy is that moment of gazing upon something that is incredible and it uplifts your spirit. And you all know what that looks like. And if you don't, Google faces of joy. I'm going to make you all work a little bit for this. Point 4 is sadness. Now you notice that courage, love, joy, that's all very positive. Sadness, disgust, and fear we usually call negative, but they're not. We all know what a person who is feeling sad looks like. And the thing is that you will see these even as micro expressions. You know what a micro expression is? The little flash of expressions that people get. Almost too quick for the eye to see unless you've been trained to it. Sadness is as necessary as courage or love or joy. Sadness is a positive and profound experience that allows you to release emotions that would otherwise be packed in and down. And that's never a good thing. Now, disgust helps us understand why this is so primal. All of these are primal. And when I say primal, when you look at a chimpanzee who has lost its buddy, you will see the face of sadness on that chimpanzee and you'll recognize it because it's not that different than the human expression for it. Disgust. When is disgust positive? Yes, Osama.
When you see food that has mold on it. I guess.
Yeah.
Absolutely. When you take that turkey sandwich out of the fridge and you realize, oh my God, that smells terrible. I think I'm going to barf. That is disgust saving your life. It's a hardwired, reflexive meta emotion that is absolutely there to tell you, don't eat that, don't touch that,
Don't risk it. Yeah.
And that gets us to fear. Fear is another necessary emotion. I like to reflect upon the story of the scientist who decided to take a bunch of rhesus monkeys or macaques or whatever they were and do a simple brain operation on them and kill their fear center. And then he released them back in the wild. And within a week, all of them were dead. And they weren't dead because of the operation itself. They were dead because of the effects of no longer having fear. Because when the leopard came up and said, "Hey, would you like to join me for lunch?" The monkey went, "I'm going to slap you upside the head." And that did not work out as well as the monkey thought. Fear saves our lives.
Yes. And this is also true for people who have not developed perception of pain. They don't have fear of injurious experiences because they don't experience pain during injury. And that often means that they live shorter lives as a result of not having a lot of risk avoidance going on. Fear keeps us alive.
And we're emphasizing the lighter side of each of these, and we'll talk about the darker sides as well. Now, the seventh point here is wonder. This is, wow. This is the pure amazement at the coolness of the universe sort of feeling. And this is an important point because this is a point where, or this is an essence that allows you to make really interesting connections from one thing to another. And then we have anger. We all know what the face of anger looks like. Now, when is anger positive?
Todd, good to see you.
Hi. When it inspires you to take action, to take good actions that you wouldn't have otherwise.
Absolutely. Anger gives you the fuel to do scary shit.
It's also protective. Yeah, it helps us feel motivated to defend ourselves, the things, people, ideas that are important to us. And there can be a lot of benefit in that.
Now, the last point, or the first point, depending on how you look at it, is in English, tranquility. In Sanskrit, it's shanta, which comes from the word shanti, which means peace. And in Arabic, it's salama, which means the same thing. This, according to my teachers, is the default state. This is the state that you want to be in unless you need one of these other states. And its expression is one of complete calmness. The facial mask is at rest. So you look at the forehead is smooth. You look at the cheeks are smooth. The mouth is relaxed. Everything about the facial structure is not exhibiting any other emotion or state. And as my teacher said, there is no problem leaving home and visiting other lands. Go visit the land of courage. Go visit the land of sadness. Go visit the land of wonder. But when you're done with your visit, return to your home. And cultivating this state, the state of tranquility and peace, is essential to the work. Okay, quick check-in. Does that all kind of make sense to you?
Yeah, any questions, thoughts so far?
Yeah, I seem to recall that this is the Enneagram that you showed, and I think it was the Enneagram of emotions.
Yeah, sort of.
Yeah. Anyway, one of the things I was wondering as you were going round, I was thinking in some of these cases, like joy, you see lots of examples in adverts. And then I was wondering, but you also see what I would call happy, which is I'm wondering, that seems like a variant of joy or a
Yeah,
level.
yeah. And you start combining these 9, or usually combining the 8 together to get all manner of subtle variations of emotion.
Ah, okay.
So
Yeah.
if
See where you're
you
getting at. Yeah.
combine anger and disgust together, you get contempt. Contempt is interesting because the facial expression of contempt is the only asymmetrical facial expression. For those of you who have followed American politics and can think back to Dick Cheney as vice president, and he is most often depicted with a one-sided sneer on his face. That is the expression of contempt.
So there's really a whole kind of alchemy
Yes.
of emotions going on here with these as the atoms.
Yeah, these are I think of it as meta emotions, as that from which the expression of emotion is built. And the thing to realize about these is these are entirely mechanical. You have no control over showing these expressions on your face and in your body. When you feel disgust, your face and your body are going to tell everyone around you that you feel disgust. And it may just be a flash. That's how Ekman made his mark on the academic world, was to notice that a lot of these expressions come in as micro expressions, and developed a way to train people to recognize them.
Yeah, because we're not all walking around with emotion flashcard expressions on our faces all the time, like, the stereotypical depictions might convey. Jonathan, did you have a thought or question?
Unmute.
Yeah,
Sorry,
gotta
yeah.
unmute.
I'm
There
going to be
you
a
are.
troublemaker here. I'm looking at anger, and I question it having a place in here, because you described all the other emotions as they don't have to be positive or negative. They're like above being positive or negative. Whereas to me, anger is necessarily negative.
Yeah, and we're going to
And
have to disagree on that. To me, anger is
well,
not necessarily negative.
okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
the
Go on.
reason why I say that is
Yeah, let's let
the
Jonathan
reason
share that. Yeah.
the reason we gave why anger, an example, why anger should be there is that it can fuel one to be brave, but it seems that courage takes that, for me, courage is what is needed to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, I do have another emotion that if we need to have 9, I do have another thought of the emotion that could fulfill the 9th position.
Yeah. Let me give you an example for anger, though.
Okay.
I am minding my own business and someone comes up who is a complete stranger to me and gets in my personal space. My reaction to that, my first reaction is going to be anger because somebody has invaded my space. That gives me the energy to deal with them. And it offsets things like fear, because fear, of course, is going to be there if somebody invades your space. The anger allows you to overcome the fear, and that's positive.
Well, I would say it robs you of energy if your reaction is anger.
But it doesn't. It doesn't.
Or it steals the energy from some other part where
It
it would be
doesn't
better
steal
used.
energy. It just uses its own function to give energy. Its function is the adrenal glands.
I think we can get carried away with anger, and we do see that a lot
Yes.
these days. So I definitely grant you that, Jonathan. I think this is like the upswelling of that initial, like that gets you from a passive moment into an active moment. And speaking as a person in a female body who is small and who at times has had to deliberately channel anger in order to take action, I think it has a very important place. It's not courage. Courage is, for me, I don't need to be angry to have courage. Courage sometimes is a more passive experience for me. It's like a bearing with, bearing up under, perhaps. But anger is like, it's time to kick ass.
Yeah.
So
Anger
that's my thought.
at its highest level is the reclamation of personal space. Now,
And
Yeah, I think it's I don't do anger very well. I think that's it's
yeah,
an emotion I'm not very in touch with.
yeah, and
that makes sense.
yeah,
I understand that too.
this is an emotion that is looked down upon in modern society. We have done everything that we can to crush anger out of people so that when we do see anger, it comes out as negative. I'm suggesting that there is a higher order anger that can be accessed. And a lot of times you're going to get the sloppy negative stuff as well. Because this is all mechanical.
Yep.
Thank you.
But thank you for bringing that up so that we can explain why.
And tell me what you think is another emotion that could be here.
Okay. Remorse rather than shame.
That's an interesting one. I feel like that is more
That's more sadness.
complex
Yeah, it's
too.
more complex and it's more related to sadness than to anger.
I mean, for a lot of these, I think of like an infant, like a young child, and the kind of automatic, just completely unsocially hemmed in emotions that they have. Sometimes they're subtle, sometimes they're big. But, remorse is something that tends to be a little bit more complex than these very foundational things.
Okay.
Yeah, we have a couple of other statements
Yeah.
that we got to get to.
Shuri.
But thank you, Jonathan, for your thoughts on this, because it will help us clarify things.
Definitely. I always think it's good to, especially with something like anger, which I think speaks to exactly what you were talking about, Jonathan, with it being hard to access that. I know what that's like too. It's probably the emotion that I suppress the most. So I think there's something to be said about that. Anyways, Shuri.
I'm like Noor, a small female, and I find it's an engagement of using anger to project an intensity when I'm dealing with someone who is asleep in mechanical behavior. So you have to, it's not a fury, it's not a rage, it's very controlled anger. And so that's where I find it a useful tool to bring across that intensity to make them wake up and pay attention to what I'm saying. I hope that's helpful, because it's more of a skill than actually losing your lolly. The anger that you're engaging with is applied judiciously.
It can become that. I think we have to cultivate that directedness with it. But yeah, definitely, Shuri. Thank you. And Jonathan gave you a thumbs up as well. Ian.
Yeah, just riffing off of what Shuri just said, I would say that there can be an unconscious anger, but then there can also be a conscious anger when you start to get control. But where I was originally going to jump in was I wanted to introduce the term righteous anger as being a positive. And the couple of examples that I've been just thinking of as the conversation has gone on is the Russian invasion of Ukraine. I mean, I feel anger about that. And I'm sure the Ukrainians feel 10 times the amount of anger that I feel about it, along with the way that I'd say Netanyahu has been treating Gaza. I feel anger about that. I also feel sad, of course, but I think one of the things that's becoming clear to me as the conversation progresses is that there are whole levels of complexity around this, and I'll shut up now because I'm sure that we'll move on to that.
Thank you to all of you. Thank you, Ian. And I'm sure many among us share those emotions you discussed about Ukraine and Netanyahu and the whole rest of it. So thanks for sharing. Yeah, where were we, Mushtaq? Thank you, everyone.
So here you have these 9 meta emotions, essences, that we postulate are hardwired into our system. And they're universal in nature. Everybody's expression of anger is going to be similar enough that everybody else will recognize it. Everybody's expression of tranquility will be recognizable by anybody else. Anybody's expression of sadness will be recognizable by anybody else in the world. That's how hardwired these are. And people can argue about whether or not this is true. You can do that in the comments. If you're amusing and interesting, we can have a discussion. If you just want to tell me I'm wrong, don't bother, because I don't have time to play those stupid games. What can we do with this? What are the practices of this? And the answer to that is we cultivate each of these meta emotions and learn to produce them consciously and to inhibit action at the unconscious level. So I'm minding my own business. Somebody gets up in my face, invades my personal space, anger wells up, and I stab them.
Uh-oh. That escalated quickly. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's a possibility if you have no control over your anger.
And it does happen.
And it does happen
mean,
all
you,
the time.
not with you, but
Not lightly, no. Or, so this week I had a tragedy. My kitty of many years passed away. And that cat and I had a powerful connection from the day he came to the house. He wasn't originally my cat. My housemates brought him home to be one of their cats. And he hated them. He absolutely hated them. And so he spent all of his time hiding from them and hanging out in my room, sleeping on my bed, snuggling up with me at night, and wanting to have nothing to do with the rest of them. Finally, I had to move out of that place for various different reasons. And of course, he wasn't my cat, so I left him behind. A week later, I get a call saying, "Hey, how would you like Wingnut?" I named him, by the way. His name was Wingnut. And I said, "Well, of course I would like him. Why?" He says, "Ever since you've left, he's been peeing everywhere and shitting in my shoes." He started acting out. He did not want to be around these people, and he was expressing himself. I get him, and no bad behavior. Worst bad behavior he ever had was hacking up the occasional hairball. But it's a cat thing.
like you do.
Yeah. And then he passed away.
Yeah, that's
Now,
what
I
happened
could
this
have
week.
been completely incapacitated by this through my sadness, and I was very sad. And that sadness could have incapacitated me. I could be mourning that cat right now rather than giving you this talk, because that cat was important to me. But I can grieve for the kitty and let that grief go as appropriate, because I have, at least to that extent, mastered sadness as an emotion. I don't stop it. Stopping it would be utterly unhealthy. But you let it pass through you, you experience it, and you don't have to act on it in any particular way. Does that make sense? I can go through all of these and talk about appropriate use. But hopefully you're getting the idea. So to work on these, first and foremost, you develop tranquility. Easiest way to begin to develop tranquility is to learn to relax your face and head. If you feel your face right now, most of you will notice small areas of tension. And I would invite you to feel those. And if you're wearing glasses, you can take them off. And
It'll
let's
help.
say,
Yeah.
put your hands here. And if you have any tension here, rub it so that you can actually feel how to relax it. Feel your scalp and go, oh, there's tension up here. Let it go. Rub your face like this. Until your expression becomes neutral. From here, you can access any one of these. So you pick one. Joy. What does it feel like to experience joy for you? If you don't know, think back to a moment where you felt joyful. And it can be anything. Let it move into the awareness of your body. How does your body feel when you feel joy? What does your face look like when you feel joy? Let yourself feel that happiness. And let yourself experience it without having to do any kind of acting of it. And then take a breath, let it out, and return to tranquility. Do the whole face thing again if you have to release the tensions of the face that joy comes from. And you can go through all of these experiences, love, sadness, disgust. Think about, and this is a fun one, think about the most disgusting smell you've ever smelled. And you'll feel your nose wrinkle up. You're going to do.
You know, it keeps on coming up for me for that one. The
What?
song Dead Skunk in the Middle of the Road.
Yep. Yep, that's what you get. For me, this is fairly disgusting, is the smell of a human corpse buried in a mudslide for 4 days and then brought into the hospital. That is disgusting. That tells every nerve fiber you have, this is bad. Back away from the bad smell. And it remains, because smells are like that, they remain very close to the surface and easy to access. I can remember exactly when. It was in the winter of 1982 in the county of Santa Cruz, 4 days after the Great Flood.
Ooh.
I was working at Santa Cruz County General Hospital. And even though I was a psych nurse, we all had to float around and do whatever because half the staff could not get into the hospital. And several of those who did get in ended up just sleeping there for about a week. And part of the duties that I did had to do with the morgue as they were bringing people in. And we ended up having to put bodies in a refrigerator truck. And disgust is an extremely good reminder of that whole situation.
Some of us may find ourselves making the face just listening to that story. Yeah.
Yeah, because there's nothing quite like rotting flesh to bring that up.
Todd.
All of these very powerful emotions are still with us because over the course of, well, however long we've been animals.
Sorry, Todd.
We're a little fuzzy.
Yeah. Yeah, pesky microphone.
Is that better?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. No, it's all of these emotions, and all of them are powerful and, well, the dose makes the poison, use only as directed, but we still have them with us because as long as we've been animals, they have had some value in keeping us alive and having descendants.
That is absolutely the truth.
They have uses, or we wouldn't
Yes.
still have them.
Yeah, that's why I say none of these emotions are negative. We can't call them either negative or positive. They're all situational, and they're all hardwired in. We're never going to get rid of any of them.
They have
Well, we can-
utility, or
Yeah.
they wouldn't be there.
And these are of the body. They're completely, they are moving center things. They are the most primitive part of the moving center, which is why we can recognize most of these expressions in the faces of chimpanzees or gorillas or orangutans. You know, they're a very primate sort of thing.
Can you talk about, so right now you said these emotions or meta emotions are in the body. What happens when they become of the mind? When sadness creeps up now to take space in the mind, when anger creeps up and takes space in the mind, even courage, even all of these things. Can you talk about that?
Yeah,
Please?
because that's an interesting and extremely valuable question.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Thanks.
this is where the misuse of these states comes in, literally being captured by them. And it has to do with the misuse of centers. If I experience sadness and I fixate on it, what fixates is not my body, but my mind fixates on it. I think about it. I think about what made me sad over and over again. I trigger that emotion over and over again with my mind, because that's where the triggers have to come from. The trigger of the body is very, very different from the trigger of the mind or the trigger of the heart. So, trigger of the body for, let's say, fear is walking down a path in the forest and seeing a snake run right in front of you. You're going to get that moment of, holy crap, and jump back. And we seem to be hardwired to be afraid of snakes. There's some theories around that. I don't know if it's true, but we seem to be. Now, that is an emotion of the body. That's this thing that can move to the mind. And I like to tell the story of my brother, who was deathly afraid of snakes, so much so that he almost got court-martialed once.
Oh God.
Yeah.
This story. Poor guy.
Yeah. Yeah. So he's in Vietnam. He was in the Navy, in the freshwater Navy, zipping up and down the Mekong Delta in this little boat called a PBR, Patrol Boat River. And he's heading towards the boat down the path, and a snake crawls in front of him. He jumps back, unloads his M16 into the snake. Then he pulls his shotgun off of his back and unloads a full tube of buckshot into the snake. By this time, everybody is running up because they think the camp is being attacked. And he's there, and he's still racking the slide on his shotgun. And people are going, what? And he's going, snake. Needless to say, nobody was happy about this. And the lieutenant took him in front of the captain of their unit. And the captain heard the story. And he looked at Tim and said, why didn't you use a grenade? Tim thought for a moment and said, I didn't have one. The captain just shook his head, laughed, and sent him away. Like, get out of here. Don't do it again. That came from the mind. That he had an ongoing phobia around snakes for many years. And that phobia was triggered by the flash of fear that one gets when one sees a snake, triggering all of these memories in him and causing him to act out in various strange and irresponsible manners.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that
So,
must have been really rough.
and so that makes sense when, when that fear is an outwardly, right, like fear of snakes, fear of reptile, whatever, animal coming up. And then we have,
Fear of
fear
loss.
of, fear of public speaking,
Yeah.
right? Which is like a big one. Which maybe can be attributed back to, or feeling of fear of being isolated from community, not being liked, not being loved, all of these things. And having that now running in the mind, kind of what you said, is just always triggering
Yeah,
an area.
the momentary flash of fear that should just give you energy triggers this cascade of thoughts in the mind that just sit there and churn and churn. This is what in the Yoga Sutras they called it chitta vritti, the rolling of thought, the mental cogitative thoughts rolling and riling over and over again and never stopping.
The stuff that keeps us up at night
Yes.
when there's no immediate danger.
Yeah, or when you ate too many slices of pizza with anchovy on it.
And we're seeing it, with, for example, courage, that may be a positive thing normally, that people would assume it's a positive thing. However, when that is going now into the mind and go into that cycle, can cause this inflated confidence that may possibly will do more harm than good.
Yeah, and it can cause people to do crazy things like jumping off the sides of mountains wearing wingsuits over and
guess.
over again.
So what is there a point to catch these feelings and emotions before creeping into the mind?
Yes. And that's the beginning of the exercise that we were just doing, where you can learn to evoke the meta emotion and then relax it. Evoke the meta emotion and then go back to tranquility. You train yourself to experience the emotion and then return to peace.
I would say start easy and simple.
Yes.
Don't go for your deepest, darkest secret rage or fear or whatever.
No, I
And,
mean, if you want to do joy, think of cookies.
yeah, puppies.
Puppies are good.
Puppies, yeah. The time when you were little that you were courageous and everybody was proud of you, and it was great.
Yeah, you got that shot even if you didn't want it.
I have a lifelong thing about needles, and I noticed that it is never about the one incident in front of me. It's always about the accumulation of experiences with needles that come up every time I encounter them. And I have to be really, if I can be, because sometimes you're already in it and then it's a struggle to climb back out of being all worked up. But when I'm able to do what Mushtaq is talking about and just be in the moment of the experience. Yes, it is scary. It does activate a lot of these meta emotions that we're talking about. But can I just kind of watch my body doing its thing and walk away from the experience, letting go of those emotions as well, those meta emotions?
And so that's a taste of what you do with this. For deeper instruction on what you do with this, you can, if you're in the forum, feel free to ask questions there, and we will do things that take this deeper and go more into the practices. And if you are in the digital Durga, we can really go deeper there.
It does seem
these are special secret Sufi things.
it does seem that just from my perspective, that obviously these are deeply personal, right? And it's kind of like going with what your I guess I think you said your teacher, or somebody saying, to leave the land of tranquility and go visit other land and then return. It's one level to do it, when I'm sitting home and doing facial expressions and stuff like that, just to get that taste, or just to see what it is, to have some kind of reference to it. And I believe we all have reference points to these meta emotions because they're so deeply rooted. And it does seem that some way, somehow in there, we know what action we need to do in order to experience courage, what action we need to do in order to experience joy, and what action we need to do in order to open ourselves up to sadness and disgust and all of these different things. And it's about actually leaving that tranquility base, that baseline, that tranquility home, and walking towards courage, or walking towards fear, or opening up ourselves towards sadness, and possibly into grief and anger and all of these things. So that, yeah, I love that line, to leave the home of tranquility, go and just come back. Just make sure to come back, not to get lost in this wheel.
Yeah, that's something that has stuck with me for decades, that particular description and thought.
And I like how you touched on, once you identify these meta emotions, you can learn how to intentionally call them up in yourself for a purpose. And as we were saying, harness it in a way that is in line with your values and with the needs of the moment. So we've had some things in the chat that I just want to share.
Go for it.
So Todd was quoting the litany against fear earlier.
Yes.
Yes.
It's always fun.
Yeah. The part that goes in reference to fear, I will permit it to pass over me and through me. And when it has gone past, I will turn the inner eye to see its path. Where the fear has gone, there will be nothing. Only I will remain. And we're all on our Dune kick lately, so that's perfect. Thank you, Todd. And then Adrian said, it reminds me of some usage of the Noxubandi rules.
By Noxubandi rules, do you mean Hoshtardam, Nazarbagadam, all of those rules?
Interestingly enough, we are quite familiar with those.
Couple of thoughts on those. First of all, they're not Naqshbandi and they're not rules. They were codified by Abdul Khalik Gurdjieff 250 years before the birth of Bahauddin Naqshband. And they're not rules, they're practices. And they are the basis of our particular training, which is why you remember what I was saying about having your personal space invaded? When I see that and I see the Naqshbandi rules, I feel like the Naqshbandis are invading my personal space, trying to claim something.
Yeah, so it's not about you, man.
Yeah.
Really? Oh my God.
It is a
And,
tradition shared quite
it is
far
a
back.
tradition shared, and Bahauddin Naqshband did verbalize one important part of those rules. I just don't let them get away with claiming them for their very own.
Yeah.
They like to do that.
But given that we
Oh.
have shared Sufi ancestors in our lineage, you know, between all the branches, it makes sense that these get passed down through multiple roots. Anyway, did you have more you might like to say?
Yeah, how do you see those as connected? Because you're correct. They absolutely are connected.
The names are names, labels are labels. They are there. It's debatable. The origin, I knew that they were much before Bahauddin Naqshbandi, of course. But the last three, I don't know who, they claim to have been of his authorship. So
Yeah, he elaborated on the book,
no?
that's why I said he did add to this one important thing. But yeah, that's neither here nor there. How do they remind you of this? That's much more interesting.
I mean, there's the second one in certain sequence because they can appear in different orders. But the second one, as I learned, is called Nazarbagadam.
Yes,
which is watching over the steps. So it's a very, very big hint to self-observation. And then once you put yourself in that, under that scope, that lens, or that, I don't know, idea, and you get used doing that over, I don't know, in my case, because I'm a slow learner for a number of years, you can narrow down to very, very, like, I don't know, almost archetypical specifics, you know, such as the lights or the jewels that you were sharing now, right? So the transition between them and how do you benefit from that contact, it's it just reminded me of that usage, as I just said in the chat. Another one that is very interesting also to the matter, or it feels like that for me, at least personally, is the eighth one called Vazgasht, sometimes translated as restriction or patience, or but restriction, where you also I mean, can be used in many ways. One of the ways that can be used, or at least I'm more familiar with it, is that you put again, you narrow down something that is some concept or some experience or some emotion or some situation that leads you to that kind of any of those that you mentioned in an Enneagram, no? And by doing so, you can isolate one from another and then observe it in a more let's say, objective way, if there is such a thing, depending on the capacity and the training of each one. So that, I mean, in a first glimpse, that would be the two that come to my mind, And there's Safar Darvatan too, which is what traveling in your own homeland.
Yeah,
which
return
is,
to the homeland.
Yeah. In a different way is like a portrait of how well you know your paths inside and how to start, pulling threads to identify one thing or another. And by doing so, you also achieve a certain awareness of those archetypical topics, such as, I know, the emotions or the inner states that you were referring. So in that sense, if it makes sense, I don't know.
It does.
It does. Yeah. It fits very nicely. And
thanks for tying that in.
Yeah, I wish we had more time, because that's a whole area of very useful discussion.
Maybe for our next time.
Yeah. Yeah, I consider the principles some of the most important articulations of the Sufi path that there ever been. And also some of the most misunderstood from time to time. I would remember one sheikh saying, watch your step. Nazar Barqanam means that you should always be looking down so that your eyes never see anything out there that's haram. And
could be one way to put it, but
yeah, that just, I don't want the chiropractor bill of the guy who does that, because his neck is going to be wrecked. Not to mention, he misses all that beauty in the world.
This is all Allah, just, different forms.
I was always very resistant to anyone imposing to me any notion of what is haram and what is not.
Yeah, that's pretty wise.
I think you're in good company.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ian, you have a thought?
Well, I was just going to ask, for those of us who have never heard of the Noxubandi rules before, I just did a quick internet search, and there's a lot of articles talking about the 11 Noxubandi rules, and it sounds as though that it's perhaps a topic for a whole talk.
It was a topic for 9 videos that we did back in the
Believe
day.
it or not, we have a playlist on the 9 precepts, if anyone would like to check
cover
those
them,
out.
including the 9th, which is where the Noxubandi get the 11th. But
yeah, they split it into parts.
Yeah.
Separated out.
So it's basically a homework topic.
Well,
it's a good place to start. And it is each of those practices is an essential part of the training of our tariqah. And so if you're hanging out with us, it's good to have at least a familiarity with them. And you're going to get a lot of different explanations for them. Ours is the only one that's correct.
Of course.
I
almost said that with a straight face. Almost.
That's my smart ass. Yes. All right.
The things you put up with.
You put up with me. That's how it goes. So you guys can check that out if you want to see how we think about taking raw materials, like these things inside of us that we are all kind of pre-programmed with and all have to figure out a way to work with in our lives. These 9 precepts are one way to think about how you might do that. And Adrian gave us some really great examples of
Yeah.
how that can be beneficial.
I've made a note.
Great. Yeah. I mean, it's a lot. Pace yourself or binge, whatever works for you. But I think it might offer some good context for
Yeah. There's
the work that we
11, 12 hours worth of talking.
do.
Well, I managed to get my taxes done this afternoon, so
Plenty of time now.
so I should be a little freer next weekend.
Good. Glad that's taken care of. Blech. Taxes. So yeah, does anyone have any last thoughts they might like to share? I'm trying to be nice and not put people on the spot.
I just got one thing to say about the
Yeah.
needle fear, Nor. Like I had to help me overcome any kind of fear. I had to change my fear to curiosity. So then when I would do the needle thing, because I thought, how can I donate blood if I'm afraid of needles? And I just thought, well, start looking at the technology. And I was looking at how fine it was and this, and I was just going through all of those things where I was thinking about other things instead of the fear. And it's the same with public speaking and things that I have to do. I'm thinking, okay, don't think about the fear, think about, and I start getting curious about something, and it actually helps transform what I'm feeling to help me move past that thing, because I can feel myself slip into inertia because I'm just too afraid and I can't make the move to
Yeah.
get out, whatever it is. So,
I mean,
yeah.
I'm with you on that. I've talked about this before. I learned how to do like glucose blood testing on myself so that I could be in control and have a better relationship to pointy metal objects puncturing my flesh. Sorry to say it out loud, but here we are. And that helps. But there's something about IVs that I cannot quite I'm still working on that. But I mean, typically, what's that, Shri?
First time I could actually look at a cannula going in, and I'm thinking, wow, how amazing is that? And then watch how they take 4 vials or something, and then they were doing something else, and they said, this is so we don't have to keep pricking you all the time. I thought, it's a really good thing. So I had to, that's how I transformed it. Sometimes I can't look at it though, going in.
Yeah.
But I can think it's a good thing that they can do this thing.
I think about it as I've never passed out. I've never been past like kid age. I've never fought about it. I figure that's pretty good. If I'm at a point with my fear where I'm willing to be a participant, even if I'm not having a good time while I'm participating, I can count that as a courageous win. And it just gets better from there.
Yeah. But that goes with all the other ones about how can I get away from just staying in the tranquility and being able to fully experience sorrow, or actually the discomfort when someone else is feeling sorrowful and you want to run away from them, and you think, no, just be there. You don't have to do anything. Be there. They're grateful for that. You don't have to talk, you don't have to do anything, just be there. And I thought, yeah, being in that feeling and talking about all these different meta feelings, and you think, ooh, yeah, just being in it. Don't change it, don't alter it, just feel it for what it is.
Yeah, fixing it. That's another impulse. Sometimes it's not the time for fixing. It's the time for just marinating without, as you often say, without getting lost in the story, but the feeling is there. It is a felt experience. It's not just like fantasies playing out, records playing out. It's real. It's now. And not, you can flinch. That's normal. but just kind of allowing it, as we often say, to quote the famous quote, letting it be what it is. Yep. Yeah, we had a bit of that this week, but just let it roll through.
So, any last thoughts from anybody? Em, we haven't heard from you all night. Are you in a place where you can say something? There she
Yeah,
is.
I'm sure I'm being a good girl and just listening quietly, marinating in all the wisdom of everyone's sharing. My mind keeps going back to the idea of eilm al-jawahir, like the jewel, the eilm, the knowledge or the knowing of the jewel. I don't think it's a coincidence that the word jewel is used there to express that essence. Like you said, when we think of the zat, there is no, you can't put a form to it, a quality to it, or anything like that. But with jewels, you can. And it can open up a whole lot of avenues and pathways to discover the self. And I'm wondering if those jewels correlate with the birthstone, that astrologically aligned birthstone that we're born into. And if we examine that particular jewel, for instance, could we understand our own making in how we relate to the world, relate to ourselves? And all these emotions, like for me, courage would be the jewel standing in strength up against a higher force that it has to endure. Like to get a diamond out of the coal, it has to go into a lot of forceful processes. Same with gold. For it to be cleared out of the other mass that's holding it, it has to, you know, or to be put into a shape, it needs to go into fire. So the jewel's courage allows it to stand up against these forces for it to reach its highest self. You know, even tin and lead is of value when it reaches its highest self in becoming a container for something. But for it to reach that, it has to go through all of these processes. So it needs the courage to live through all of that. I think love would be the magnetism that allows the elements to interrelate with one another. So the properties of my jewel align with the properties of another jewel, how we are attracted to one another. And in that attraction, get to know one another through the mirroring of each other. I think that's without the attachments, without all of that. But clearly, there's always the risk of attachment, and there's always, but in that, again, you get to know your own element and the element of the other person, and there's growth in that. Joy, one I'm still desperately working on, but I think joy might be the sparkle and the twinkle in each jewel. Each jewel has its own sparkle, its own twinkle, its own color, its own, you know, that when you look at it, you smile. You can't not smile when you see a ruby or a I don't know, a diamond or a pearl, like whatever jewel you're playing with or looking at. If it's held in the right light, it could bring this. It has joy in it, in its own embodied self. It has joy there, and sadness might be the limitations of the jewel in the face of unsatisfaction in all that interaction that it has to do with all the other jewels. That it could feel like the ruby might find us say, why aren't I clear and like a crystal or a diamond, or vice versa. Maybe the diamond said, why don't I have some color like that? But then when it's put in the light, it's got all the colors. So we need to go through all these swaying and intermixing and clashing for the sadness to hold space for, again, for us to see ourselves and know ourselves. Disgust might be the jewel, essential for the jewel not to mix and lose itself in another jewel. Like there needs to be an element of, oh, not that, not for me, not that, right? So there, it defines. Disgust, I think, is like a real boundary maker for me. And it could, so that the jewel itself doesn't get tarnished from it. Eating that moldy bread, like Osama said, is like, it'll tarnish this body, it'll tarnish this soul, it'll make me sick, like that. And if I see a corpse, and I have seen many, it takes you into existential, deep existential thoughts and feelings and sadness and annihilation and all of that. And it can also, so it really allows you to put a border and a boundary to say, okay, if I'm so fearful of death, then, and these people are going, and I too am going to go one day, what is in me, in my jewel, that allows me to find my eternal existence, per se? And Islam obviously gives lots of pathways for that. And in our decree, we have believing in life after death. So that's that. And maybe fear is a resistance towards that annihilation and gets us thinking about existing. Like you said, Mushtaq, without fear, we would put our lives at risk all the time. Wonder might be the jewel's ability to be cut and draw light to its own, like a prism. And in that prism state, the wonder it brings to life. When a beautiful ruby or a gemstone is turned into a ring, like this is just agate, but the writings on it somebody cut some writing onto it and put a beautiful salawat onto this ring. And it always draws me into wonder and reminds me of the wonder of the complete human being called Muhammad in our tradition, and the Muhammad within me, that light within me. So when I make salawat, praising and salutations, I'm not only praising and salutationing a man 2,000 years ago, but I'm also praising and giving salutations to the jewel within me. And all of this takes us out of the horrible, almost intentionally designed attack on our self-worth in this world. We're constantly bombarded with either inflating the self or crushing the self. So if I know that I'm a jewel, every jewel is precious, then the self-worth wounds that were caused maybe from my parents not knowing proper parenting skills and all the people that entered my life that I was a mirror to their own ills for them, but they put me down, and I believed it somewhere along the line. This prospect of thinking that I'm a jewel, essentially from God's name and essence, allows me to start to value the breath and the self. Leave me in wonder, obviously. And anger, I think anger is important because it anger is an energy, isn't it? It's a fire energy, and white light is what takes us into our complete self. So sometimes we need to burn. We need to get angry at the other or the self and work through that, and allow that gem then to come out of it sparkling and or coming back to its raw self. Maybe it was already cut and made into a jewel, but now it needs to go back and recycled and made into something more useful, you know. So anger kind of gives you that fiery state to take action. And tranquility, obviously, is the ham madde we call in Turkish, ham madde meaning the raw material, the foundation, the home base for that jewel to realign with all of these qualities within itself. And I loved the practices, because now we've got something that we can polish our jewel with and work with it and bring them all into the perfect divine right order, so that it can help us to gain that being complete human being, take the right steps in it at least. And we've talked so much about that it's not a space or a place. These are maybe time and space bound, but it's to get us to the timeless, spaceless, bodiless, thingless, no one, nowhere, no thing place. But to get there, we need this vehicle. So we got to look after it. All those emotions, we've got to look after it, take ownership of it, rather than saying he, she made me angry or sad or this or that. To take ownership of it, inshallah. I don't know. These are what opened up as you guys shared your wisdom. Thank you so much. It's again another healing session.
Well, that is a perfect metaphor. Wish we had more time. We could go deeply into that. It would be worth it. Maybe we'll do it sometime in the future, inshallah.
Thanks for your vulnerability, Amina.
Thank you for holding the safe space so we can be vulnerable with one another and to ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm kind of in awe about how you were able to make all of that and make it so coherently. Wonderful.
Yeah, she's kind of smart, ain't she?
Yeah. All right.
Well, that's pretty much all I have to say about this for tonight.
Yeah, I think we did good.
Yep, as I said earlier, we will delve into this more deeply in the forum and in the Durga. So look for things there.
But in the meanwhile, chew on everything on offer this evening. Take a look, if you like, at our previous videos on the Enneagram of emotions. I think that is what it was called when we covered it previously. And if you're feeling like you want to take on not just extra credit homework, but really like the foundation of what we do, check out the 9 precepts playlist on our YouTube
I'll
channel.
actually put that playlist up in the final frame.
Cool. Your work is done for you already. Yeah.
All right, folks. Let me switch us to Brady Bunch mode.
Yeah.
There we are.
All right, everyone. Thanks for being here. Thanks for sticking around. And we can wave to everybody watching.
Yeah, thanks for putting up with us.
Yeah. Take care.